रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। सीताराम जय सीताराम। सीताराम जय सीताराम। रघुपति राघव राजा राम पतित पावन सीताराम। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे, हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। जय प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा प्रभुपादा, जय प्रभुपादा, जय गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा गुरुदेवा, जय गुरुदेवा। हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल। रामचंद्र भगवान की जय। रामनवमी महोत्सव की जय। नित्य गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। So today we'll be reading a little bit from Ramayan about Lord Ram's appearance from chapter 2, the birth of Ram. So it begins saying, Dasharath, his desire fulfilled, dwelt happily in Ayodhya, waiting the birth of his sons. The Brahmins and kings who had assembled for the sacrifice left for their various abodes, sent on their way with kind words and gifts by the emperor. 4 seasons passed. Then, at a time when favorable stars were visible in the heavens, Kaushalya gave birth to a son named Lord Ram. Ramachandra Bhagavan ki jai. Though Ram was the lord of creation, Kaushalya saw him simply as her own dear child. She held him tight to her heart, overwhelmed with motherly affection and unable to recognize his divinity. Coming out of the room, Kaushalya shone brilliantly with that baby boy who had eyes like lotus petals. Next, a son named Bharat was born from Kaikeyi, and from Sumitra, who had received 2 portions of ambrosia, were born twin sons, Lakshman and Shatrughna. All 4 boys resembled celestials, and they seemed to blaze with their splendor. In the heavens, Gandharvas, heavenly musicians, began to sing melodiously while Apsaras danced, kettle drums resounded in the sky, and showers of flowers fell upon the earth. In Ayodhya, the streets quickly became crowded with rejoicing citizens, and chanters of sacred hymns gathered in every quarter, glorifying the birth of Lord Ram and his brothers. The city, decorated all over with colorful flags and garlands, looked beautiful. King Dasharath, overwhelmed with happiness, gave a large heap of shining jewels to the Brahmins and arranged for a feast to be distributed to his entire kingdom. Vasistha joyfully performed the name-giving ceremony, and all the other rites of passage for the brothers. Of all the brothers, Ram was specially glorious. His attractive body had the hue of a celestial emerald, dressed in the finest silk and adorned with golden ornaments. He captured the mind of all who saw him. Ram was devoted to his father's service. He took delight in the science of archery and quickly mastered the arts of horseback and elephant riding, as well as the various methods of driving a chariot. Lakshman was deeply attached to his elder brother Ram from his infancy. He was like a second self of Ram, and he pleased him in every way. Unless Lakshman was present, Ram would neither sleep nor eat. Whenever Ram went out to the forest to hunt, Lakshman would follow at his heels, guarding him on all sides. Shatrughna was just as dear to Bharat, and these two brothers were also inseparable. Dasharath felt as pleased with his four sons as Brahma feels with the four gods presiding over the four quarters of the universe. Those princes were tigers among men, yet they were modest, wise, far-sighted, and glorious in every way. They were attached to their studies and soon became well versed in all aspects of kinship, kingship. As the prince's studies neared completion, the king began to think about their marriages. One day, while lost in such thoughts, the powerful mystic Vishwamitra arrived at his palace. The sage instructed the gatekeepers, "Tell the king that Vishwamitra, the son of Gadhi, is at his door." Upon seeing the lustrous rishi, the gatekeepers were struck with awe. They ran to Dasharath's quarters to inform him. Dasharath quickly went with his ministers to greet the sage, even as Indra might greet Brahma. As soon as he saw Vishwamitra standing at his door, the king respectfully brought him in, sat him down, and personally washed his feet. Standing with folded palms before the sage, Dasharath was thrilled with joy as he spoke. "I consider your arrival here to be as welcome as the obtaining of celestial nectar in one's own hands, as rainfall arrived in the desert, as the birth of a child to a childless couple, or as the recovery of a lost treasure. What can I do for you today?" Dasharath was aware of Vishwamitra's glory. The sage was famous all over the world for his performance of difficult austerities and his various behavior. He was also well known for his almost limitless powers. Once, by his own ascetic power, he had created an entire constellation of planets which still shone in the southern sky. The king felt honored to see him and wondered what had brought him to Ayodhya. Sitting at Vishwamitra's feet, Dasharath continued to address him. "You are worthy of my service in every way, and it is by great good fortune that you have called at my door. My night has ended in a splendid sunrise, as I see here before me the best of the Brahmin sages. Simply by seeing you, I have received a blessing equal to the results of visiting every place of pilgrimage. I wish now to perform some pleasing work for you, O noble sage. And you may consider it already completed. As a guest, you are as good as God to me, and I shall not hesitate to do anything you desire. Addressed in such a delightful way, Vishwamitra felt joy as he replied to Dasharath, "Your speech has pleased me in every way, O tiger among kings. You are descended from proud ancestry and have been instructed by the godlike sage Vasistha. Make a firm resolve to satisfy my desire and prove true to your promise, O virtuous one." Vishwamitra had walked for 3 days without eating or sleeping, his mind fixed on his purpose. His body was lean and powerful, golden colored, and covered by a black deerskin. He had in his hands a staff and a water pot, his only possessions. He had come to ask something from Dasharath, which he knew would be hard for the king to grant. The sage gazed steadfastly into Dasharath's eyes as he spoke. "I stand here this very day consecrated for a sacrifice. However, two powerful Rakshasa demons named Maricha and Shubahu constantly impede its performance. These demons are avowed enemies of both gods and humans. They are capable of ranging the skies and assuming any form they like. Every time my sacrifice is close to completion, these Rakshasas appear overhead and drop down volumes of flesh and blood, ruining it entirely. In my attempts, I have left that sacrifice feeling dispirited, having accomplished nothing other than extortion." Dasharath listened intently as the sage spoke. He knew that Vishwamitra would not have come to him, the emperor of the earth, unless there was some difficult task at hand. The Rakshasas were dangerous beings who hated sages. The king knew they had been increasingly disruptive, and this was now confirmed by Vishwamitra. Although capable of destroying those Rakshasas with a curse, O king, I will not do so. As a condition of my sacrifice is that I do not give way to anger. My mind must remain steady and controlled, nor is it the sacred duty of Brahmins to attack an enemy. This is always the duty of kings and warriors. Please, therefore, give to me your eldest and most heroic son, Ram. Although a youth, Ram is possessed of true powers and is more than a match for any Rakshasas. The king's mouth fell open. He gazed in horror at Vishwamitra. Was he serious? Send Ram? The prince was just a boy. He had never seen action on the battlefield. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Ramnavami Mahotsava ki jai. Shri Lord Ramachandra's appearance ki jai. Hare Krishna, Krishna.